Can I please have a big OKFN OKCon welcome for the founder of the Internet Archive, Brewster Kahle.
This is great to be here, but I have only one goal. What I want to do when I leave Europe is I want to have several projects going. So the whole point of this talk is to try to find something where you go and say, I want to work with these guys on that. That is the goal out of my talk. So who are we? We're the Internet Archive. We're a nonprofit library in the United States. The talk before the last one was on business models in the open world, and we are a success story in this. We are fully open, and we've been growing along with many other organizations in the United States that have committed to open. So even when the .com bust was going on, Wikipedia, ourselves, EFF, Creative Commons, Public Library of Science, we are all succeeding. The goal of our lives is to build universal access to all knowledge. So not just new knowledge that is being made in the open sphere, but all even copyrighted materials, and I'm going to try to show how we're trying to do that. It's within the context of a library. I am a technologist. I built supercomputers, started companies, sold them, did things like this. But the idea is one thing we can do is leverage the concept of libraries much more than we are now. And this is a picture. I like to look at what is above the doors of libraries or institutions because they take that seriously. And in the Boston Public Library, it says free to all. The Boston Public Library was built by some of the most capitalistic, mean people ever on this earth. Yet they built libraries and they put things like free to all. They're special in our world. If we're going to try to build universal access to all knowledge, I'm going to try to give an idea of how big is each area and then how are we doing. So I'm going to start with books, music, video, and then say how we're doing. The Library of Congress is the largest print library in the world. It's about 28 million books. A book is about a megabyte. So it's 28 million megabytes is 28 terabytes. 28 terabytes would fit in one shopping cart. And it would cost less than coming to this conference if you're coming from the United States. So the idea of storing all of the words of the Library of Congress on disks is easily done. So then the question is, do we want to do it? How can we do it? How do we do it such that it is open? First, we have to justify that it will be done such that it's a good thing to do. And there's starting to be beautiful browsers and displays of books in electronic form. But when we started this project, people said they wanted books again. And I think they were right. So we made a bookmobile. So a print-on-demand bookmobile. So in this car, we could download, print, and bind a book and give the book away because it only costs $1 to print and bind a short book. This is cheaper than going and getting a book from a library and returning it. In Harvard, they say it costs $3 to do this. So why not we go and make more books and make it available? We made them. There are a couple in India. This is the first day in Alexandria, Egypt. This is an engineer with a kid. This is the first book this child has ever owned. When we launched it in Uganda, we went and found that this technology works even into remote areas. There's now technology for robot making books. But I think actually the days of going and making print-on-demand books is probably somewhat over. Even though it is getting much easier, I have a lot more faith in some of the things like the one laptop per child. So we have made all of our books, because they are open, and only ours are available on one laptop per child because we're open, and many of the other projects by large search engines are not as available. We have made our books available on even the proprietary things like the iPad to try to make it so that we can bring these books out to people. And books are available for the blind now, and we multiplied the number of books available to the blind last year by about a factor of 10 by taking the books and reformatting them so that they can be read out loud. They sound a little like this. but they are still now available to the blind and dyslexic on those little devices. So then the question is, okay, we want all the books online. How do we do it technically, and how do we do it with the law? So I'm going to handle these now. We started by doing scanners that we purchased, and this is a guy that is digitizing at the Library of Alexandria in Egypt. He doesn't look that happy about it. Well, maybe he's just having a bad day. We ended up designing our own scanners that have 2 digital cameras and it holds the book like this. And it costs 10 cents a page to go and do all of the metadata, taking all the pictures, doing the quality assurance, straightening it and cutting it so that it will look really good, uploading it, optical character recognition, put it in many different formats, put it on 2 different continents so it will never go away, 10 cents a page. And we did this to try to make it so that people in libraries do not feel that they have to go to commercial companies to be able to do this. We can do this in the open world, and we can do it ourselves. So we've been digitizing along. This is what a scanning center looks like. This is in San Francisco. Down the center are microfilm scanners, and on the edges are book scanners. It takes about 1 hour total to digitize a book and do all of the parts of digitizing a book. So that's about the sort of cost that it is to do. And we're now digitizing 1,000 books every day in 23 scanning centers in 6 countries. So we have scanners in London and in Edinburgh, but not very much in Europe at all. Much more in the United States, very heavily, and growing quite quickly in Asia. So the idea is to then have these books available. Well, what books are now available? We now have 2,500,000 books that are available for free. The whole files, all of the high resolution, all of the optical character recognition in I don't know how many languages, over 100 languages. So this is a big library, but of old materials. Then the question comes in, how do we get the new materials, the new books? How do we do this without going to jail, without going and making it so that the publishers are upset? So we have come up with a way of doing this. So we digitize books for the blind and dyslexic. So if you're blind, you have special legal ability. So we digitize everything for them, and then we take the books, we buy as many books as we can, e-books, but really buy them. Buy them in such a way that we can lend them out. Not a license, buying them. And some publishers are now selling books, really selling e-books. But most are saying, oh no, I want to just cause trouble with Amazon and Google. It's a problem. So we have to go and offer money to the publishers to sell e-books, but this does not get us most of the books of the 20th century. So we are digitizing these and we're lending them. Lending them. It sounds old-fashioned. It is, but it's working. We digitize a book because we own a book, we can loan a book. And one person at a time can have the digital book. We use the same technology that the publishers use to protect their new books, to protect these old books that are still under copyright. If it's not under copyright, anybody can have it, of course. But if it's still under copyright, we've been lending it. I'm going to describe a little bit of how this works. I think this is an interesting solution for something that has been causing a great deal of trouble, which is dealing with the legacy materials that are still under copyright. The openlibrary.org is one of our 2 websites. We have archive.org and openlibrary.org. It is one web page for every book ever published. The idea is a Wikipedia of books. And we've gotten information, open information from many, many libraries to make available in this way. And it is available for free in bulk. If you want all of it, you may have it. Just like Wikipedia. It gets about 150,000 users each day. A big deal is we've now signed up 1,000 libraries. As of last weekend, we announced this at the American Library Association, that 1,000 libraries from 6 countries have joined to lend books together. They are contributing books that are in copyright into a pool. These are digitized and lent to visitors of those libraries. So it's kind of an old way of thinking, but it is working very well. So we're getting a lot of libraries that are coming together, and we think it is really great that in 3 months, we went from 150 libraries to 1,000 libraries. So hooray! There's a future for libraries. Let me show you how this works. Let me take a sample. If you're in Boston, if you walked into one of the Boston libraries, or you use their website and with your library card, then if you go to the Open Library website and say, I want to get that HTML5 book, it shows that it was published recently and we bought it. We actually, really honest to God, bought the book, but it is checked out. Oh well, somebody else has the book. So let's go find a different book. Say we want a book. This one comes from the Boston Public Library on the Mayflower. So this is a book that the Boston Public Library, in copyright, digitized and is lending out. And we can then say, okay, we have a choice if we want it in PDF, but one of those disappearing PDFs, you know, that goes boosh after 2 weeks, or in browser. We really like the non-digital rights managed world of the browser because it does not require an app, or it does not require a special device. It is as open as we've been able to make the lending system. And if we say, okay, I want to read it in a browser, then we can then read the book slowly. In a browser, and it says that it comes from the Boston Public Library. So any of these libraries are sharing their collections digitally in digital form. You can check out 5 books at any particular time, and this system is working. Libraries can join. It is free. You just write email with an IP address. You send a book. There's no contracts, no nothing. So it's a way of getting to having access of these older materials, and we think this is a way forward without having some of the problems that we're hearing with the Google Books libraries. And even there are some national libraries here in Europe that have signed on to Google, and it is a disaster. People say that they are open. They are not. They are locking up the public domain. So this is the worst crime you can do. And so there's alternatives that we can do. It is inexpensive, and we can move forward, not only with the public domain, but more modern materials to be able to make them available. Okay, next, audio. I'm going to keep moving. If we want to get all of the audio online, well, how big is it? It turns out it looks like there's between 2 and 3 million records ever made. What we've been finding are most popular is people that cannot get access to the classic music publishing industry. And there are many cultures that music is very, very important, and audio is very important, but it does not work very well through normal records. And what we have started to do is offer free hosting. So we offered unlimited storage, unlimited bandwidth forever for free. Unlimited storage, unlimited bandwidth, forever for free. Many people have said, okay, I want this. And a lot of it are people that record concert recordings. We have now over 90,000. We'll have a big party in October when we hit 100,000 concert recordings from 5,000 rock and roll bands. We have everything the Grateful Dead ever did. But there are all these communities that want to share, and by going and providing a home for them, it has made non-commercial access to these materials available. When we digitized audio recordings, we find that it costs about $10 or to $20 to do. We digitized 2,000 out of the Dutch audiovisual archive because the copyright might be reenacted backwards. So basically, all the performances, if they're 50 years old, in Europe are still open in public domain, but you may lose it. So we wanted to digitize and show why you want a public domain. So we did 2,000 records, but it still has not been used much. Please use this and make it so that there are school children using this so that when these guys say, oh, if it's in the public domain, nobody will want it. That's absolutely false, and we can bring forward people at those hearings. But digitizing audio records is pretty easy to do. So even though we don't have all of the records digitized yet, we have over 900,000 recordings available for free, and you can do it as well. You can put it on our servers, but also that we're trying to show that this is not difficult for you to do either. Moving images. So if we wanted to do all moving images, most people think of them as Hollywood-type films. There are about 150,000 of them, only that many. And about half of them are from India. But most of these have rights problems, and we've only done about 1,000 of that type of movie. But we've found lots of other types of movies that people like to share and that do not have rights problems, and people use a lot. We digitized a lot of government propaganda movies, a lot of advertisements, corporate films, and people use them all the time. We don't know why. But they get millions of downloads. These are these old films they showed us in school about when you should get married. I don't know. But anyway, we did these, and they're very, very popular. But also we've been offering, again, unlimited bandwidth and unlimited storage, so people upload to us. We were there before YouTube. YouTube does most of the work, but people come to us for different kinds of things, like Nina's Sita Sings the Blue in the original 2 gigabyte file. 200 gigabyte file. Thank you, Nina, is available for public downloading from the Internet Archive, and we'll try to keep it alive forever. Now that YouTube video has shut down, Google Video is almost shutting down. Who knows how long Flickr and YouTube will last? They're run by companies. That means that they don't care. So it will be around as long as it makes money for them, but no longer. So if those that are looking for long-term homes, sometimes putting up with nonprofits and their maybe not so great service is a good solution. When we started doing this, we started to attract attention. And we got one of those very special letters in the United States, the FBI National Security Letter, where they want to demand information and you cannot tell people that you've even received the letter. There have been hundreds of thousands of these, but there have only been 3 that have been publicly pushed back on. The only way you can push back on one of these, you can either comply, go to jail, or sue them. We sued them. Suddenly they didn't need the information quite so fast, quite so much, but we did not just allow them to just get out of it. We wanted to make a cookbook. We wanted to go and make a whole thing on the World Wide Web so that if you got one of these, you could know what to do, because it's quite horrifying. You can't talk to anybody. I couldn't talk to my wife about it. I couldn't talk to my board of directors. It was very isolating to be under one of these gag orders. We basically made this whole kit, including pictures of the lawyers, and said, call them. So EFF and the ACLU are great organizations and helped us to win this case. Also, in moving images, we're recording television. We've been recording 10 channels of television, 24 hours a day, for 10 years. Russian, Chinese, Japanese, Iraqi, Al Jazeera, BBC, NBC, NBC, Fox, all of it. 24 hours a day, DVD quality. It's getting pretty big. We've only made small amounts of it available so far, around 9/11, because that was a television event, and people were trying to understand in the United States, how were people reacting? CNN was saying that people in Palestine were dancing in the streets. Were they? Let's look at Palestinian television, and you see a very different answer. I think we're starting to understand that news comes with a point of view. And unless you record and can compare and contrast, you cannot think critically. And in the United States, we're suffering greatly from this. People are convinced by what they see on television, but it's really only one point of view. And it's causing, I think, havoc and causing problems for our democracy. So as a library, I think our responsibility is to make this more available, and we're going to try in the coming year. So moving images. Even if you wanted to go and digitize moving images, it costs only $25 to take videotapes and put them online. $25 for an hour. It's not much. And about $100 to $200 if you have film. Again, not much. So if you have collections, the idea of putting it all online and not selling out to a corporation is doable by ourselves. We can help you, or we can teach you how to do it. But the idea of taking all of these materials and making them available is within our grasp. And we can be more bold than we are. By being nonprofit, by not making money off of this, people like it. If you do a good job, people like to have their materials online, even though they may not be quite sure exactly what all the rights issues are. And if you're responsive and take things down, it works quite well. We now have 500,000 moving images on the Internet Archive for free use, and it is widely used. So even moving images, for a small organization like ours, we're about 50 people, professionals, and about 150 people that are more than that. So a total of 200 people that work for the Internet Archive, 150 are scanning books, and about 50 people are programmers and administrators and librarians. Software, there are about 50,000 titles. Again, not that big a problem to do, and we're just starting and would really like some help. For doing the classic software, because it's starting to go bad. Trying to read those old floppies, it's starting to become hard. And even saving a lot of the new SourceForge. How long is SourceForge going to live? I don't know. We're probably best known for our web archive. This is Yahoo back in 1996. We collect a copy of every web page. We try to collect every copy of every web page from every website every 2 months. And it's getting sort of big. There's Pets.com. I look back, this is the Chaos Communications Camp website in 1997. Dorky. We have a web archiving tool that's a professional tool for people to make their own collections if they need help. Of course, all our software is free if people want to go and download and use it. One collection we did was around the tsunami. And we got cooperation from libraries around the world to find out what we should collect, and we donated it back to the Japanese library because they thought they could not do it under their law. Isn't this dumb? Anyway, but at least there are people trying to help. Rare books and letters, so digitizing these and making them available. And so I am trying to argue here that we can go forward and digitize and put all of this on computers, and it's not that expensive to do. Then the question is, how do you preserve these things in digital form and the physical form? If there's one lesson from the Library of Alexandria, right, the great library in 300 BC, it's probably best known for burning, right? It's best known for not being here anymore. It was the center of learning of the ancient world. It's where our culture came from, yet it's gone. And if they just made a copy. So, we thought, okay, let's learn from this. So when the new Library of Alexandria in Egypt was started, we thought, let's start it with a gift. So we donated a copy of the World Wide Web collection that we had as of that time, and they've been trying to keep up to date and digitizing their own books and donating it back and forth. And we have Stichting in Amsterdam with a partial collection. So we have California, earthquake zone, the Middle East, and a flood zone. What could go wrong? So this is what, when we got to our next generation of machines, we had about 2 petabytes. This is what it looked like in San Francisco. This is a computer. That's a computer. It sits outside. It is the Wayback Machine. If you want to know how big is the web, come on, ask me. How big is the web? The web is 20 feet by 8 feet by 8 feet. That's it. That's how big the web is. It's about 150 billion pages. It gets about 500 hits per second, and gets on the order of about 500,000 users each day. This is what our newest machines look like. We bought a church. This is the Internet Archive's next generation machines, and we have 6 petabytes of them. We can digitize things, you can upload them, please do. But one thing we found is just being digital isn't enough. So we're starting to go physical. So we're starting to collect books because libraries are throwing them out. If you have any collections, we'll pay for transportation. We want 1 copy of every book, music, and video ever made. And we have a good technology for doing temperature and humidity control. So we think we can do a very good job. This will store 1 million books, and we just launched it a couple of weeks ago. So we have 500,000 books now, so we're starting to get better at it. We'd like to get to 10 million books soon. So, in conclusion, universal access to all knowledge. I think it could be one of the greatest things humans have ever done. I think it could be what our generation is remembered for. The last generation got to land on the moon. That was pretty good. But I think we can go and basically make the Library of Alexandria that's available to everybody forever for free. Thank you very much. Now let's work together. We have some jobs to do. We have the rights. We have the money. Let's do it. Can I take a couple of questions?
Yeah, who has questions? Who has questions? Can everyone be generous to everyone else and try and keep them short? I'm going to give 1 mic here.
Hello, I have a quick question about an archive I've been making involving all the election leaflets for the UK general elections.
Yes.
And this is a difficult proposition because in your case you only have central libraries that you can go and gather the books, and we have to persuade all general members of the public to upload scans of the leaflets they've received personally through the door from the politicians that have printed these leaflets.
Oh, great idea.
And they normally disappear within a week of them being delivered, and we now have a preservation of 6,000 leaflets, but we have it very difficult to get outreach, even though it's had high
offer a prize.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, or something. Do fun things. I mean, a lot of people do free things just because they're fun and interesting, and they get to hang out with other cool people or flirt with other people. Get them together. Have groups like this, and you might be able to go and build your communities bottom up.
Okay, I'll talk to you later. Yeah.
We have a question over there.
Okay. Another question. I was always thinking of people who can't go to a museum, for example, when I want to go to Metropolitan and I don't have time or I can't go to the States. Now I was thinking even more when you talked about this, would it be possible, because I was thinking of little robots with cameras that you can remote control them as a business model, and now maybe something even more interesting, if we put a camera on it. The people give the service, they get it, and they run the robots through the museums, and that's recorded, because when you think about museums who burned down Egypt again, not burned down, but let's say some changes, political changes, so it would be a good option to have this content in the museums somehow recorded.
Okay, that's surreal. So to go and have telepresence into a museum, so you can go see all the museums without traveling there? Yes. Gosh, that's weird. Go for it.
A more modest question. I'm a big fan of the Wayback Machine, and I've written a little Firefox extension that allows to basically use it within Yeah, but I can't use an API. I have to scrape your results from the web page. I would love to have one.
Write me a mail message with all caps. You don't have an API. And we'll fix it. Or otherwise, we're a disgrace. I think there is an API. Well, I don't know. There should be, and if there isn't, we'll make one. Yeah.
Just one personal question, if I may. I really appreciate your project, but I just wonder whether do you have any point of satisfaction? Because it's just an endless project, isn't it?
Do we ever finish? The answer is no. I learned an important lesson. Actually, Laurie Anderson, in one of her performances, asked about Moby Dick when Ahab got the whale, right? After you get your whale, what are you going to do, right? Die, retire, and go to Florida, right? So when people set out to make $1 million, and then they make $1 million, then what? So I learned this idea of picking a big task that you can never achieve from Marvin Minsky, who invented artificial intelligence. And he said that it was helpful, or at least I remember what I learned from him, I think he said this, was to go and have a big enough goal that you'll never get there, but also it allows a lot of people to work together without being all coordinated. That it's not just you're trying to achieve something concrete, you're trying to achieve a vision. And I found this to be a very helpful thing in my career. I've been trying to achieve universal access to all knowledge for 30 years. And I know my life is still going to be interesting in 20 years as we continue to make forward progress. On the other hand, I think we can have all of the old books, music, and video online. If we take a great library like the Boston Public Library or a Princeton or a Yale, it's about a 10 million book library. 10 million books. That's not that many. Google has actually scanned more than that, but they've done a bad job and they've locked it up. Blech. Okay, so we in the open world, we have to do it again. But we've got up to 2 million now. And the idea of doing all of the old books, music, and video, I tried to argue, is quite doable. And then we have to build the business model and the expectation of openness, and to make it so that sharing is a cherished and a rewarded activity, and then it will continue and won't just be locked up within our libraries. So I think we can make concrete, real progress and make it so that we don't have a bad digital library for the next generation. Within 5 years, we could have this done good enough.
We have about a minute left. We have 2 more questions. Can I ask the gentleman at the back there, and then we'll take them both at the same time, gentleman in the front here.
Yeah, you have a great infrastructure, really. So my question is, have you thought about maybe having a business model of offering data to be stored directly there instead of copying it? Like, I have to go to Amazon to store a website, run a website for me, and it's not following the open strategy.
So can we make a business model of storing other people's stuff? Right now we offer it for free, and we have an S3 interface. So if you can store into Amazon, you can store into the archive, and we would like to see it, especially if it's cultural materials. If it's just encrypted things for your PC, please don't give it to us. But we are starting up a service for institutions that want to store terabytes of data with us. And it will be a subscription service. So people can do it for free if they want basically the support from, well, email and stuff. But if you really want care, then we will charge. And that will be a service that we come out with in the next year. So you're absolutely right. I think there should be public S3 storage, and there should be public computation, which is the kind of like the EC2, but really built for the public sphere and done on non-profit terms.
Final question.
Okay, hey, I've been made aware of a bad things happening in this regard. There's a national electronic library that is doing digitalization of national books, and they're putting that out into the public, available on a digital internet archive. And then there are some publishers who download the digitized works and cut a deal with the the authors or the author's children to sell the electronic publishing rights, which have not been sold in the past. And after buying or having this contract with the digital publishing rights, they demand the takedown from the electronic archive, which did the digitalization in the first place. But the children or the author himself has just sold the digital publication rights. And so a lot of works are now disappearing in this National Library. I know it's a scandal. Can you tell me, or
So,
have you encountered something similar?
If I understand it right, is people have digitized these and made them freely available, then rights holders sort of said, hey, I can claim this and make money, so you should take it down from the public. We haven't seen this exact thing. But we do get people going and not wanting to have their materials in the Wayback Machine, for instance. Or they just come back and they say, you know, I didn't mean it. Please make it go away. Those are pictures of me when I was not doing so well, or something. And we do allow people to take things out of the Wayback Machine. We haven't seen it in the books area. I think most people want to be read. Most people want to be seen. One key thing that we've found, and it can be advice if you're going to start an open project with other people's materials, is be respectful and try to make it so that people do not feel like they're being taken advantage of. If people feel like they're being taken advantage of, they will find a way to stop you. They'll stop you with a denial of service attack. They'll stop you with lawyers. They'll stop you. They'll just try to trip you up. So if one's respectful and tries to make it so that they're better off than worse off by being in a library and being exposed, this is how we've found to be successful, and I think why we're still here. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, everybody.